People Syrup Show, and we have got a background Sen for half of the show today because at the last minute he's having to teach a BJJ class, that is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for those who don't know, and it may explain a lot of the little in-jokes that have been happening in the background. So today we have the fantastic Amanda, who is coming to help us talk about conventions and how to look after yourself, and also we have the J Bell and the Fertessa Elise. So what we'd like to start with today, Amanda, is a little bit about your origin story. So how did you get into, not Origins, Gen Con and other conventions like those? I am winging this because I just found out I was doing this on my own, so apologies about the crazy mixture of words. Amanda, go.
Okay, so I started going to conventions in 2010 when I had a small business that was not well liked in my area. It was a little controversial, and I went to some craft fairs and I got some really rude comments and a suggestion that maybe I should change my venue. So I went to a convention in Missouri called VisionCon, and it was the most delightful experience. Everyone was so kind. As soon as I told them I've never been to a geek convention, even though my name was Geek Details, it's my very first one as an adult on my own. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but this has been an awful experience till now. Please be kind. And they were fantastic. So I signed up
Oh,
for a bunch more conventions, and then I met so many people, and eventually I started volunteering because when you go to enough and there's an issue in the background that you can help with, you just jump in and say, "Yeah, I'll help you make this convention happen a little bit better." And now I get to work at Gen Con every year. I get to be part of the Who's Your Info Booth team, where I smile at people and try to answer their questions or say, "Ooh, that's a really good question. Let's learn the answer together."
yay. And
So,
so what we're actually talking about today is looking after yourself at conventions, so self-care. Self-care comes in a bunch of different categories, so it's not just making sure that you go outside and take deep breaths and connect with the earth or all of those sorts of things. There are a bunch of different things that come under self-care, and those include making sure that you eat, making sure that you are safe. And there are a variety of different safety aspects that we need to take into account, and a whole bunch of other things that are not just our own responsibility to take care of ourselves, but also our responsibility as participants in the community to make sure everyone feels okay. So, just a little warning for people watching: there could be some triggering content here, so look after yourself there as well. All right. So, first of all, what I'd like to talk about is, Amanda, what do you think is the most important thing you can do when you're planning to go to your first convention to make sure that you're going to be okay?
I think the most important thing you can do is know your limits and let somebody know where you're going. So my first convention, I it was a smaller convention. They had a bunch of room parties, which is like a private room at the hotel, and sometimes you need an invite to go to them, but most of the time they're open. And every time I went to a different room party, I was messaging my husband in another city, "Hey, I'm going to this room now. Hey, I just met so and so, and I'm going to this room with them now. Hey, just checking in. Look, proof of life." And I take a picture like, this is what I'm wearing. And I know at the time to other people it seemed really weird, but I grew up in a party town in Arizona for part of my life. And there were just certain things like you don't leave your drink behind, you don't take drinks from strangers, you don't go off places with strangers. And I showed up at a convention going to parties with strangers where I took drinks from other strangers. I was like, this goes against my training. Better check in, take a picture, know my limits, be able to tell people, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't drink that."
Yeah, those are really good. I did similar things with online dating. So if I was
Okay,
meeting anyone, I made sure that I took their profile information and sent it to one of my friends that I wasn't going to, that wasn't going to be there, obviously, because that
right.
would be strange. And that I would say where I was going if I was going somewhere and what time I expected to be back in touch and all of those
Right.
sorts of things. And I would take pictures of the person that I was meeting and all that sort of thing and send it through. My friend happened to be a cop, which was particularly helpful. So it's like, this is my current location. If you don't hear from me in 40 minutes, please come and get me.
Right.
Those sound extreme to some people, I'm sure, but for those of us who have potentially encountered these or who have had people who've encountered these situations, they really are just simple. Like, if nothing else, someone has a photo to post when they're, you know,
Right.
reporting you missing.
There's like a documentary on me later. I want all of the pictures and videos.
You know what I tried to do.
Right.
So let's see, Fertessa, what kinds of things do you do, and do you think new convention attendees should do to make sure that they look after themselves? This can be
Sure.
in any area.
Yeah. The thing that I always love to do whenever I go to conventions is to make time to go eat away from the venue. Um, One of my favorite things, just as a side, is to find places that are not near a tourist area, which is usually close to the venue, to go eat so I can get a feel for the city. But the bonus of that is it also gets me away from kind of the big crowd, and it lets me have a bit of quiet time to myself because I would usually walk either in the mornings or towards the afternoons while people were like still like in the convention hall playtesting and doing all the things. And that would just be a nice time to kind of walk and have a little bit of peace of mind and recenter myself. So, it's not, you don't necessarily have to go walking to go find your food, but I think that it is important to have some time of quiet
Mhm.
because there's a constant din inside of convention hall that you don't even realize until you step outside and your ears are buzzing because there are like hundreds and up to 1,000 people just all in one
It,
place
in
talking
that
at the
tiny
same
little room, yeah,
yeah.
sometimes it's just sort of,
And
and in
exactly.
the huge ones, it's impossible to understand how many people are around you, right? Like
Yep.
at PAX East, I think I saw that there were 130,000 people there while I was there, and I was like, well, that explains why I felt just like completely overwhelmed.
Yep.
And I just want to take a quick moment to say hi to George, Eric, and ETK in the comments. Hey guys, thank you for joining in. Feel free to pop comments in there about what you do to look after yourselves. Um, Now, off the back of your comment, Fertessa, one of the things that I've been told when I was first arriving at conventions was the 6-2-1 rule. So, if people haven't heard that, what that means is sleep or rest for 6 hours, have at least two proper meals. So, that is not, a bag of chippies or some crap. It's, meals. Um, and one shower a day minimum. Thanks, folks. So my personal rule actually for that is 6-3-2, because particularly with these really warm conventions that we're attending, but also with COVID, because what I do is before I leave my room, I have a shower, and as soon as I get back, all of my convention clothes go into the quarantine area and I wash myself. And I have not yet had COVID, folks. So, there we are. Jay, do you have
Nice.
anything to share in terms of, do you have any of those little like mnemonic type ideas or other things you want to contribute?
Yeah. I've been attending conventions since 20, well, board game convention since 2019, but I did like comic cons and stuff before that, and I
Mm-hmm.
quickly realized that I'm an overdoer. Like I like to spend as much time as I can doing all the things, and
Guilty.
yeah,
Yeah.
that worked, but like scheduling time to do nothing became such a benefit, right? Whether it's walking to or from a meeting or just relaxing, like you mentioned, for Tessa, going outside to just breathe the fresh air or just taking time to regain your energy really does make a big difference.
And that qualifies as part of your six, folks. If you're really trying to sort of, oh, 6 whole hours, can I spare it? Well, maybe you have, 4 and 1 or something like that. Like you can make that work for how you function. How do you do it, Jay? Do you tend to have a big block, or do you have a big block and a few little blocks, or?
I tend to have just a big block. When you guys mentioned the 6-2-1 concept, I thought, well, I actually get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and then I
That's
always eat
impressive.
breakfast. Yeah, yeah, I know it's weird, but like
No,
I
that's
do
really
that, and
good. That's good.
I always eat breakfast because
Hmm.
I love breakfast, and I'm up early enough that I can do that. And then, kind of on the heels, I don't want to too deeply, but scheduling out your dinner, it's like the biggest advice I could give, because you got to remember that like in this town there are only so many restaurants, but now that town is populated like tenfold, so
Yes.
everywhere is going to be busy as soon as those convention hall doors close. So like even if it's just fast food, just think ahead of time to try to get your dinner at like an earlier time or a bit of a later time, or book a reservation or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are really good points. So some of the things that I do, I've found since we moved to the US in July 2 years ago, one of the things that I found really challenging is the size of everything that I try and order. So what I thought I could do is I could order groceries delivered to the hotel, and that would get me through the convention, and I still do that. But one of the things that I didn't realize is that everything's going to be massive. So for anything that's non-perishable, what I do is I actually have, I prepared this earlier, little bags of snacks that have the right amount in them so that I don't have to worry about throwing things away. And I also don't have to worry about overloading my suitcase in either direction, because one of the other things that I didn't know was going to happen to me is a lot of the flights here don't feed you at all. Like at all. You can be flying for 5 or 6 hours and they might not even give you like a little tiny bag of pretzels or something because, oh, there's a little bit of turbulence, so we're not doing service. That is a long time to not eat. I'm diabetic. I cannot allow that to happen to me. So I have these little things. I have a bunch of other things. One of the other things that I do, because when I get anxious, I don't want to eat like food, is, and again, something I prepared earlier, I put a little 6 pack of these friends in my suitcase, in my checked luggage, because I always have checked luggage because I've always got prototypes and I don't want to get searched by TSA. So I've always got these little friends in there and I can consume liquid food. And it's ridiculous how much difference it makes to just have a little bit of liquid food. I do not recommend making your entire diet liquid food, folks. But if you're like me and that's a bit of a struggle for you, have your V8s. You should have had a V8, apparently, is the thing that people keep saying, because I have not heard that ad, but everyone says it to me. Could have had, should have had. Anyone?
I think it's could have.
Okay.
I think it's could have had a V8.
Well, definitely do that.
It's a very old ad.
It is a very old ad, and
V8 is really good for mixing with beer.
and I understand that a lot of people are not fans of V8.
No.
But there'll be another option that can work for you that can, you could have a smoothie. You could have all of these sorts of things. Now, for me, breakfast is the only meal that I'm guaranteed to eat when I'm at conventions. So we try and do like the hotel meals. We Instacart a bunch of fruit and things like that. Try and make sure your hotel has a wee fridge. Those sorts of things. Those are really useful. And one of the things that I've bought is I've bought myself a small portable kettle because being from New Zealand, I need tea. And most American hotels have this little like Keurig cup type machine thing. And it makes coffees and things which tend to be at 80 degrees centigrade, but tea needs to be at 100. And so what you end up with is this disgusting tea-ish situation. And it's just no. So that's one for all those of you who are from outside the US and who are planning to travel to the US, plan to buy a little kettle.
Soylent actually is a good one, Troy. I've had it. The name is a little bit troubling, but the product is one of the least gritty meal replacement things that I have consumed. And I have some food issues, so I've consumed a lot of meal replacement shakes.
Yes, that's definitely one. Another one, if you're someone who's not terribly good at remembering to feed yourself, did I bring them with me? I have little protein bars that look like muesli bars, but they have extra protein in them, and that helps you get through a little bit further, because you've got to remember, even if your body's not moving around that much because you're playing a lot of games and things, your brain's still working and it's still burning through. And what can happen is you're sort of cruising along, everything's fine, and then you just suddenly go gadunk. And that's happened to me while I was doing a play test, for example, and all of a sudden I was crying. So that was awkward.
No.
And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, no, I was just really anxious and now it's finished and I'm glad that it's finished and I'm just crying for some reason. I'm going to go away. And then realized I had basically not slept or eaten for like a day. Don't do that. That's what we're here to tell you. So does anyone else have any this is how I learned not to do that stories?
Well, yeah.
Fertessa, go ahead.
I'll just say, if you are participating in any panels or, you happen to be running any panels, then something that I found super helpful for me, that got drilled into me from my friends who had to deal with the aftermath, was to practice your speeches, write it down, have some sort of footnotes to go for, because, especially if you have anxiety, if you go into having to run a panel, your nerves all bundled, you don't eat right, you don't drink water, so your throat's all parched. Like, it's just a big meeting of terrible things that make something that can be small much worse. And so if you know you're in a position where you are going to be speaking and socializing a lot because you're running or hosting a thing, then try and see if you have one of your friends, even if they're not board game. My friend has nothing to do with board games. She's just purely there for support and spirit, but she will sit there and let me practice going through my points and pretend to be interested.
What an awesome
That's
friend.
so nice.
That's amazing.
And it's been super helpful because I called her crying after one particular convention, and I was just so stressed, and everything had gone well. I was just so pent up from like building up to that particular situation. And so
you
now
get it
that's
done
my...
and then you just
Yep.
because you haven't given yourself anything to cope with, right?
Yeah,
you think,
exactly.
yes, I'm doing it, I'm running on fumes, it's going to be okay, but then the fumes run out and you're like, oh no.
Exactly. So even
late,
if you
right?
don't have anyone who is into games with you, they can at least understand you have an important speech and can maybe, listen or use your mirror or record yourself if you really don't want to do it in front of someone else. But that helps.
Yeah, that's awesome. Making sure that you've done the preparation for yourself that will help you. And that's a really good point, right? So for you, what helps is to practice with someone and to go through it. For other people, practicing is the worst thing they can do because it'll actually it'll make them more nervous and they'll be more worried about making mistakes. So think about what works for you and learn from that and make notes, because you'll forget. Trust me. Like, if you haven't been to a convention yet, and then afterwards you think you're going to be able to remember what happened, I can tell you right now that is not going to happen. You will not remember it all. One of the things I do to remember things is I take photos. I take lots of photos and I post on Facebook, and I put like stuff on the photos so that I can remember. But I don't know. Does anyone else do anything to help them keep track of how they remember things? Amanda, do you do anything like that?
I do the same thing, actually, and I started taking photos at conventions of just random things when I had a problem at a convention. And one of my new friends told me, when you go talk to security, it is far easier to show them a picture and say, this is the person that caused the problem, instead of, well, they're about this tall and they kind of look like this. Like, nobody's
It's
really
a white guy with a
private,
beard.
right? It's a bald guy named Dave.
Yeah. Yeah, Yep, I completely understand. Troy's got a good point there. A lot of the Asian convention halls have concrete floors. Yes, absolutely. That's the case everywhere that I've been in these big areas, because they're either concrete or they're another hard thing because it's easiest to clean. So cushion shoe inserts are a good idea. The scale of the convention centers here is just, it boggles my mind completely. I had no idea. When we were at Origins just now, I thought, oh, I'm going to go and meet Will at registration. I had a look at the map, thought, oh, yep, cool. Where I can see the convention center out the window. I'm just going to walk across this little skyway and it'll be in there somewhere. It won't be too hard. So we set off thinking, oh, yeah, we'll get there at past. We'll leave about 15:15. That was not long enough. It was not long enough. It took so long to get there, and we were walking at a reasonable pace and there weren't crowds in the way. It's just that it was like 4 city blocks of building to get through. It's just
forever.
phenomenally massive. So yeah, having meeting places to meet up with friends, and if you have time before things really get started, to go and do a scout is probably another one. Does anyone have anything about understanding the area? Like, Jay, do you have any tips about how people can get their bearings?
Yeah, I so the first time I went to Gen Con, I think I spent a day and a half, maybe 2 days, like creating my own version of the expo hall in Illustrator, and I would like map out all of the places I wanted or needed to go to, and like where that was in proximity to the giraffe booth that I was working at,
Nice.
and it
That's
definitely helped
wonderful.
because like I knew I could look at something and know where I was in proximity to everything else. And I think that's
Can
a little bit of overkill, but
No, it isn't. It absolutely. Can you please send that to all of the convention organizers? Because honestly, the way that they present a lot of these maps, as someone who hasn't been there and who has anxiety and who wants to know where things are in relation to things, I honestly, I spend hours preparing for things like that and going, okay, so where is this and how far is that? And is that something that's walkable for me? Because I never know how far I'm going to be able to walk. I have hip issues. Is this going to be realistic? And I thought walking through the convention center would be realistic. I tell you what, even just getting there, I was like, uh-oh. So I couldn't
yeah,
go back to the hotel for anything. Like, that was just not an option. Because if
yeah,
by the time I got back there, that was the end of my day. That was going to be it. Those sorts of things are really important. I see Amy talking about the hotel room, says she listens to music in her hotel room right before she leaves for the day so she can ground herself. So Amy's one of these people who's always super sweet and positive and very on when you see her at conventions. And I do wonder how you achieve that, Amy, because you're always just so adorable and sweet and on and just switched on and like, you know, this sort of peaceful, cheerful, joyful vibe. And surely that's a lot of work
Yeah.
to maintain that. I mean, most of us are like, oh, actually, it's not the right day for me today. Can we not? But Amy's always just, oh. And if it's music, then does anyone else have a prep for their day thing? Amanda, do you have like a thing you do before you hit the floor?
Yeah, when I'm working Gen Con and I'm walking to my info booth, I put on overly large headphones and I go through the convention with music on. Um, and I don't make eye contact with people. Like, I don't wear my vest. I don't look like I'm official. It's just headphones. And that way I can get a feel for how other people are experiencing the convention. Because when you work it and you are identified as working it, people treat you differently,
Yes.
or they behave differently around you. So I want to see what's actually going on. And I just bebop to my little table with usually Kesha.
Yes.
She's just
Yes.
so
That's
happy.
yes.
Um, or like country music from the 80s. So I just bebop to my little booth, and I too find that music really helps set the right tone. So I like something positive and uplifting. Um, I find it helpful. And that shoe thing, like the inserts on the shoes are great, but also
Mm-hmm.
don't wear brand new shoes. Don't
Oh
do
my
that.
God,
You
no,
get
don't
so
do
many
that.
blisters. And George asked, we've covered a bit on food, but what sort of things do we set on our person?
Mm.
So I bring snacks. I bring a little book that I color in. Obviously, my headphones, because when I don't want people anymore, I take off my identifying I work here swag, and I put on headphones, and then I just go sit like under a tree, and generally people won't come talk to you anymore. Like, you just get to go sit in a tree or under a tree and ground yourself. Water is important. I like the little electrolyte things to put in my waters.
That's a good idea.
Um, yeah.
I think this is probably my moment to mention Vocal Zone. Um, I'm not sponsored by Vocal Zone, I promise, but this is gold. If you are someone who is not accustomed to speaking most of the time, these are pastilles that are designed to help singers. so you can use them just before you go on stage and those sorts of things. They taste terrible. I'm not going to lie, they taste terrible. But I used to lose my voice every time I got a cold. I would lose my voice every time I had to talk for any length of time. Interestingly, it never used to happen to me with craft fairs. And I've done 15 years of craft fairs, but that's because they were mainly outdoors or not in air-conditioned spaces. In air-conditioned spaces, it just sucks everything out of the air. And that even if you're constantly drinking water, yes, Eric, absolutely all the water, you're just not going to get there in these really dry air-conditioned environments. So having something like this, something along these lines, and they also do a tea, which is again why I bring my jug with me. It also doesn't taste great, but I have a voice. I've just got back from Origins. I talked the whole time. My voice is normal. I'm good. So this is my example because I just got it out of the suitcase. This is our little snack bag that we bring with us that has a bunch of different snacky things in it so that, you know, whatever the mood is, there's something, little bag of pretzels, something like that. Keeping your salt up is something people don't realize is really important. You're drinking water, but you're also sweating. So you do need something with salt in it. You know, obviously based on your diet. If you can't have lots of salt, then please don't, you know, ignore your doctor. But let's see what else. So we've talked about making sure that we feed ourselves and wash ourselves and rest ourselves and give ourselves space to escape. We've talked about making sure that we stay safe in terms of checking in with other people when we're doing things. How about the types of things that we do, like for those of us, for example, who are neurodivergent and who end up hyper-focusing on something, I tend to ask someone else to tag in and let me know, like, okay, you've been 6 hours at this. It's time for you to not be doing this. I try and make appointments with friends for meals and things like that so that they actually come get me and make me do the things. It's getting easier now that I have more people that I know at conventions, but how would you do this if you were going to a convention almost on your own? Amanda?
Well, my first one, I made sure to eat where other people were eating so that I could make new friends, because I think part of going to a convention is the friendships that you make there, the relationships that you form. Like, why am I on your podcast right now? Conventions, well, George really, but conventions. So for my first one, I made sure to eat where other people were eating so that I could make friends with them. And then I just invite myself places. So if you say, oh, I'm going to blah, 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 I'll say, oh, what is blah, blah, blah? That sounds like so much fun. Can I join you? Is that okay? Or would that make it weird? And
that's nice.
They'll say, oh, yeah, come join us. Have a seat at our table. I found that most convention people are really kind and generous with their time or their resources or just in general.
Asking is scary for a lot of people. I think that's really brave that you're willing to go and like sit with other people and ask them to include you. And I know that's a barrier, but I tell you what, if you're now someone who attends a lot of conventions and you see someone sort of sitting there kind of wistfully watching, why not invite them over?
Yeah, the wallflowers.
Mm-hmm.
I snagged those too.
Yes.
I am very proud that I once got a whole ballroom dancing at a steampunk convention because I just started grabbing people and dancing with them on the floor and then abandoning them and bringing more people to them. It was really fun.
Oh, that's really lovely. You're the life of the party, Amanda.
Only
like literally.
Only sometimes.
How about you, Fertessa? What sorts of things do you think would help, help you integrate and make sure that you look after yourself if you're arriving and you don't know your way around, you don't know the people?
Yeah. I had that experience for my first few years of the conventions, particularly going alone. And the things that I would hyper focus and I would sit there for 12 hours for 12-hour shifts. And like it'd be to the point where I'd be afraid to ask somebody to watch the table so I could go to the bathroom.
Oh, yes.
12 hours just sitting. And I have since then kind of established ways to kind of break that up by setting a schedule. So I find it hard to kind of transition to different activities. So I give myself lots of room to do that. So if I have to
Oh,
be
that's
somewhere,
smart.
I try to arrive 30 minutes to an hour early. One, so I can take my time getting there, setting up, seeing the place, and getting myself ready and comfortable. And then setting up at my pace instead of like I'm here and playtesters are already here ready to demo the game. And the same thing for whenever I'm leaving. I try, if I can, to not schedule things back to back, which I know can be hard at conventions, but I really think that it's important to give yourself that time to breathe, particularly for me. So whether it's scheduling, like this is the time I set aside for my meal. So no, I cannot go do this thing. I'm going to go do this. And it gives me that hour to kind of transition into the next thing. Same thing when I wake up before a convention, I'm waking up way earlier than I need to because I give myself an hour or two to just kind of zen, whether that's watching K-pop videos or scrolling on TikTok. It doesn't matter. I just need those extra hours of zen before I transition to the next thing.
That's a good point. That's one of the things. And now apparently the stream has gone down for some people, so I don't know if anyone can actually see us. Please check in the comments, but sometimes it sorts itself out. We'll see. I know it's still recording anyway, so we'll catch you up. But one of the things that I make sure I do now is I try and always book at a hotel with a pool, because wherever I am, I wake up by 5:30. And so I go and I just chill out in the pool. And at Gamma Expo, what I ended up doing was just gathering more and more people until we were a pool group. And so every morning we were all just like down there in the water, sort of preparing ourselves for the day. And then, people would go off and some of us would go and get breakfast together and things. And so it was this really nice start. And I have exactly the same thing as you, Fertessa. I have trouble switching gears. I found at Origins, I thought I was going to be able to go to the expo hall and then back to Unpub. I could not. The expo, it was too much. That hall was like, oh no, I can't switch from like to playtest and then playtest. No, that was it. I did it once. I couldn't go back. I'm really sorry to everyone I didn't see. I promise I mind. I would love to see you, but not no, too many gear changes. How about you, Jay? How do you manage those sorts of things? Does that happen to you?
Yeah, and to an extent, like I'm very extroverted, and I really just gather energy from others really, really well. But I think I really find comfort in like directionality and knowing where I am in proximity to other things. So I've been fortunate enough to like go to conventions and arrive maybe a day early. So like I can go get my badge and like I know where the bathrooms are, I know where the info booths are, I know where everything is that I need to find. Or if someone else needs to find it, I can give them pretty solid directions like, oh, it's right past this thing, take a left. It's going to be 3 doors down kind of thing. So having that sort of visual map in my head really helps me be able to focus on whatever the day brings and not kind of freak out.
And what happens when, for example, the convention hasn't updated the map properly or something like that? And like, does that really throw you?
It does frustrate me to get that bit of a surprise, but because it's a surprise, it's something that I remember throughout the entire weekend. So it's really easy for me to kind of adapt that.
I mean, for example, what seems to happen quite a bit at in the few conventions I have attended. So just, full disclosure, my first big convention was BGG in November last year. But there seemed to be a lot of like, we're going to be in this room and everyone shares that's the space they're going to be. And then they arrive and that's not at all it. That just happened at Origins with Unpub, for example. I had put everywhere which room we were going to be in, and then that was not the room we were in. It was considerably not the room we were in. I was like, trying to figure out all of the places on social media. I had said that that's where we were to update them and everything else like that. So, Yeah. I'm not sure why yeah, I think that the stream is actually still down, but we're just going to continue, and hopefully Sen will
Yeah.
join us again soon, because I don't have access to do any refreshes. I'm just a guest like you as far as the system's concerned. So let's talk about the types of tools that are available to us from conventions that we can use to try and use them better. So, for example, I know that some conventions have calendars and things like that. They're not always terribly efficient, but there are booking calendars and things. Amanda, what other things do you know of with Gen Con coming up that we can use that the convention helps us to?
Gen Con has an app that I
Mm-hmm.
find pretty helpful. Um, you can download it to your phone. It's got a map of where things are. You can search the whole like 18,000 events in the event catalog. Um, I can't keep track of all of their stuff because like they've got a awards show for movies, I think, and a whole like writers symposium thing going on, and
Oh
like
my.
minifigure painting, and they have a whole kids track, so you
Mm-hmm.
can filter it with their app. I find that super helpful. I don't think a lot of conventions have an app yet, but I would check whatever the name of the convention you're going to and see if they have an app. I also find a lot of information on their website. Most of them want you to find like who is their vendor list and who's on the guest list and what are the important dates to get your hotel room by. They'll put it all on their website. They'll put it on whatever social media, and they all seem to have all of the social medias. So pick your favorite. Um, yeah, I find that helpful, like going directly to the source. And then at the convention itself, I find it really helpful to find a volunteer when I'm just, if I'm like this close to losing it, I'm just going to go find somebody and say, hey, I need help. Here's my problem. Please help me.
And volunteers are usually reasonably easy to find. So I know at Gen
Yeah,
Con, they've all got they've got shirts. What color are the shirts at Gen Con?
we actually have fancy vests for
Oh,
the captains and deputies. They get this vest with like 27 billion pockets that says very clearly on the back that you're a volunteer. And then they change the shirt color every year for the people getting into the program. So they're
cool.
professional. They have like a retirement program for their volunteers, even. It's really cool. I highly recommend getting into it if you can't afford Gen Con on its own and you love it. Like, volunteer to be on their staff because it's one of my best convention experiences.
That's super cool. I know that also the PAX series have got enforcers, which always
Mm.
sounds a little scary, but every one of them that I've spoken to has seemed really cool. And that was PAX East. I'm going to PAX West soon, so that'll be two PAXs. And then
Hey.
PAX U later on in the year, so that'll be three PAXs.
Yeah.
There's no PAX South anymore, and I'm probably not going to Australia this year, so I think that'll be that. Those are all of the PAXs available, but and that the Gamma run events, so that's Gamma Expo and Origins, they definitely have like Gamma volunteer T-shirts, which I think are orange, if I remember correctly. So there's always a reasonably easily spottable person, and you don't have to pick the first one you see. If you don't feel comfortable, keep going. It's just like taxis.
Uh-huh.
You don't need to have the first one off the rank. Wait until there's someone that you feel comfortable with if you're not sure. Um, what else do you think that you can do as someone who's an experienced con goer to offer assistance to others, Fertessa? What do you think?
Mm, well, you kind of touched on it with the throat pastels, but I always carry cough drops because they work as a good preventative, as a way to kind of like keep your throat from getting dry, and also kind of a little like candy. But it's also good to have candy because, like, for me, I have a very bad problem of nodding off. Not because anyone's so very boring, but I can't sit static for a long period of time, and I will fall asleep with my eyes open. So it's very embarrassing when that happens because it looks like I should know what the game is. And I don't. And so I like to keep a bag of Skittles, or even better, a wrapped candy, because I really don't actually like snacking at conventions, because con crud, even before COVID, was a thing that was very real.
Yeah, hand
And
sanitizer, folks. Have your hand sanitizer all the time.
yeah, I would only tolerate Skittles because you can cut a corner in the bag and then just pop them.
Yes.
But usually something like Starburst, something that is pre-wrapped, each and every one.
That's why I have these little sachets, because it's not a whole bag of Skittles, so it's not like I'm very low and then suddenly now I'm a mess. It's just it's a little mouthful.
Exactly. Sour candies like Sour Patch Kids, or something that's just going to jolt me awake that I can just kind of chew on for a long period of time while the game is being explained, especially the hour-long explanations. So being very thoughtful in the types of candies or snacks that you pick.
So not those Cheetos, none of them.
Oh.
No. Please, folks, please, if you're playing someone else's game, think about what you are eating over that game.
Yep.
Or whatever it is, but yes, particularly, and prototypes, my God. I mean, that may be the only copy they have.
Oh, yeah.
So if you could just go ahead and not cover that in Cheeto dust, that would be just fine.
And the other thing is, if you are in particular going to a con where you're playing prototypes, something that's helpful to have is like a nice notebook, because if you have some thoughts and either someone is going on for a long time, or you have your thought mid-game, it's not always conducive to stop the game midway and like give your feedback then, or it's also not very nice to interrupt somebody else while they're talking. So it's good if you can just write down your thought. That way there's no urgency to just have to say it, and whenever the designer is ready to hear it, or the time is there for you to give your feedback, you can give it without feeling like you forgot something, or that you have to like speed up the process to get to that.
Yes, that's a very good point. And I suppose one of the things that we need to be sort of covering here, given that we're a board game design channel specifically, is as someone who is giving feedback, if you're playtesting and those sorts of things, make sure that if the designer hasn't told you what kind of feedback they're looking for, ask them, and then make sure you do that. Because if they've said, hey, don't worry about, for example, the look of this, I know that the look of it needs work, I just want to talk about this particular functionality, that's what I'm testing. If you obsess over the way that it's looking, one, you're wasting your own time. But two, you're wasting the energy of someone who has to spend all of this time reteaching their game to people. I mean, it's a big ask. It sounds like you're doing them a favor as a playtester, but if you're insisting on talking about something they're not ready to talk about, or that they've already dealt with, it's not actually being helpful. So one of the things I'm doing is putting together a guide for playtesters and for people who are providing their games to be playtested, so designers, and also for publishers and manufacturers, because I am running Unpub at PAX West coming up soon. So it would be really interesting if we can just do a little segue into that and the sorts of things that we can do to be better playtesters. Jay, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm sure I do, but before I actually jump into that, I kind of wanted to touch on one other thing that goes back a little bit to like what experienced con goers can do.
That's great.
New convention attendees. This is kind of what I did at PAX in I think 2019, but I didn't really know anyone in the industry at that time, and I did the kind of responsible thing of looking at the events scheduled for like seminars and stuff, and I think that was like the first time I saw Sin on a panel or something. And what was great was that I got to see all of these industry folks talking about, I think it was emotions and game design or something like that. And what was nice is we got to kind of chat with them after, because there's never enough time for all the Q&A in a session. But it really gave a new person like myself the opportunity to like know a little bit more about the industry, maybe meet a couple folks who would be okay with like going to lunch or going play a game or something. It really helps you kind of integrate yourself into a convention scene that maybe you know no one. So that's a good way to kind of meet some folks or get to know what the lay of the land is like. And as an experienced convention goer, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but it's nice to offer that experience to new people. But at the same time, you got to be aware on how to let people down easily when you need to like go, or if they're asking
Yes,
questions that you just don't have time for or something.
because
Um,
otherwise they may latch onto you for the rest of your life.
It's
yeah,
true.
yeah. So be strong in that way. And that kind of bleeds into playtesting, right? You have to be able to take their advice with grace and just kind of
Mm,
put it in a little box for later that you might open up if you decide to at your own point in time.
that's a very good point. As someone receiving the feedback, sometimes it's because it's your baby. It's hard to just go, yes, thank you. Just before we started the stream, actually, I was talking about how I used to work in customer service, and I would change my voice, and changing my voice put me into a different place where anything people said about what I was doing, um, it wasn't about me; it was about the bank. If you can do a gear change like that for yourself, like maybe you're wearing a different shirt or a different hat, or change your voice or put on a little pin or whatever else it is that you're doing, where you're putting yourself into the I am my company, I'm not me personally, that can really help with taking feedback. And of course, if you've fed yourself and you've rested, those things help too. So, coming back around, I suppose, to that side of things, we've talked about making sure that you've rested, but what if you're someone who's struggling to sleep during these? So you're struggling to switch back off, and someone goes, "Oh, let's just play another game. Let's just play another game." I know when you're new to something, it's exciting and it's really easy to get dragged into it, and suddenly it's 4 a.m. and you're the last people there. And that's fun to do sometimes, but once you're experienced at it, there must be ways that you can say, I know myself and I need to go to bed. So how do you do it, Fertessa?
Well, for me, I mean, I'm in the 8 hours of sleep club. So usually that's something that's super important to, I guess, my kind of ritual for cons to stay good and healthy. But if I were having trouble going to sleep, then I try and do things that I would do at home. So if I have access to like sleepy time tea, that's great. Taking a hot shower is great. And that can kind of like help calm with the nerves, also gets rid of con crud.
Yes.
And then, trying to put on something mindless, because uh, the thing about me is I can often trick myself into sleep. I can't go to sleep whenever I do it on purpose a lot of the
Right.
times. But if I'm like, I'm going to watch a movie, wink, just gonna
Ah.
be a shame if I fell asleep.
Oh
Um,
no.
and next thing I know, I'm asleep because I wasn't supposed to. So,
It's great.
that
That's
can
clever.
help. Or I'm gonna read this really nice book. This is just me time to read this book. That's done. So I know that about myself is I have to trick myself into sleeping sometimes, and so those are the tricks I have in the bag. Um, Otherwise, I try and set kind of that healthy schedule of I'm going to eat, I'm going to take a hot shower. I will maybe give myself one good night video, which is usually like a music video, just like a random K-pop video that I find to see if I like a new artist or not. And then that's it. Or,
I love
some
the
journaling.
K-pop. It's good for your mood though, right? It's so
Yeah.
good. Like you find the thing that makes you feel like that's
hmm
awesome.
Yeah. And if I feel like just really not grounded, or just so much has happened, depending on what the time is, I do this thing where how you get a job and they're like, what's your emergency contact? Well, think of your emergency contact at a con, who is like the person that you call that is going to ground you. And
Mm.
usually that person is the person who has my dog. So I like to do a nice video chat. Can I please see my dog? Don't judge me if I cry.
Oh.
And that will help me to get grounded and kind of be like, okay, this is familiar, and these are my people. and I'm good. So that can also help.
That's lovely. Hi, Sam.
Hello.
Hello.
Apparently,
so we stopped streaming a while ago. Apparently, we've been continuing the show just in case. It's apparently also fallen off on YouTube, but I'm not sure. So I'm just continuing as if we are still recording, and hopefully we can fix that somehow. So Fertessa was just telling us about ways to trick yourself to go to sleep. Jay, do you ever have any trouble getting to sleep?
I usually don't at conventions, but Fertessa, you brought up an amazing point that I didn't think about. So books put me to sleep. They just do. So I'm gonna bring a book to Gen Con for sure. It's going in the bag.
It's a very good reminder, actually, because otherwise you end up doom scrolling, right? And you're like, oh no.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
A nice book.
The one thing that I try to remember every night is, or like not when I'm going to bed, but like remember to have water in my room, because like that's not really something that you think about during the day. That's hard to get, but at night you might need a nice bit of water. So make sure you got that.
That's a good point, because I just assumed, again, that the hotel water would be drinkable from the taps. It was not. It was not at all. And then it was really hard to get some water. And so, like, the first night I was there, at this particular hotel, I was like, well, all right, I drank all the water that I brought with me from the airport where I refilled my water bottle, because I just assumed that I could drink the water at the hotel. And now it's, midnight, and I am very thirsty. That particular hotel, you could ask at the counter and they gave you free water. So that's a trick for anyone. Always check at the hotel if they give you free water.
Yeah.
Well, how about you, Amanda? Do you ever get in a place where you can't get to sleep or you can't chill out? And do you have any tricks?
Oh, yeah. So I've had insomnia since I was a child. It's rough. So I have like certain smells I'll bring with me. No candles, because you shouldn't burn candles in your hotel room. It's not safe. But I'll bring like some scented thing that I can smell, and it'll help me relax a little bit. I use earplugs sometimes. I have an app that will play thunderstorms or ocean wave sounds like I'm a child.
But I mean, that's who's refusing to go to bed, right?
Right.
It's like the child in your head is like, no, I want to stay up. So
yeah, that fear of missing out, and there's always something going on. There's always some invite for you to go out and have fun. And I hate having to go back and tell people I'll see you in the morning, but I do it anyways because I'm really quite a bitch when I don't get enough sleep.
So basically what we're saying is everyone else here is an adult. And I am not, because I'm just like, oh, they're playing another game. I'm going to stay up. And George is like, I'm going to bed. And I'm like,
I've done that. I've done it. And I end up having to take a nap in the middle of the day on Saturday.
Which isn't a bad thing either, to be honest.
Right. And I'll at least go take the nap. But sometimes, especially if you're working a convention, you have to actually pay attention to when things are closing and when is it going to be opening, like vending.
And what people are saying to you.
And make change, business contacts, whatever. So I made myself be a little bit better than I would want to be if I was just going there for fun. But if it's just for fun, we're going till we pass out, and then we're going to sleep for that 6 to 7 hours and going some more.
So. That's interesting. Yeah. I'm someone who regularly struggles getting to sleep. ADHD, brain constantly going, and also intrusive thoughts because, I've presented something and suddenly I'm going, maybe they hated my game. Maybe they hated it. Maybe they're being nice. Maybe they hated it. So there's sort of this mixture between like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm having so much fun. I never want to stop. And then at the same time, everyone hates me. Everyone hates me. And
I've been there.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. But those things become bigger at conventions. Those challenges become bigger. And so, yes, a book is something that always works for me because, I always read in bed. But one of the risks is if it's a good book, I'm going to read it all night. Mm-hmm. But one thing that works is cherry juice.
Oh yeah,
Cherry
I've heard
juice
that.
actually is soporific, so long as it's not one of the ones that's got a bunch of extra sugar added. So you're looking for like real cherry juice, not cherry flavored juice. Um, and I find a small amount of that, particularly if I'm telling myself that that's what it does, works really well. I am now taking my go to sleep cherry juice and I will go to sleep. And that,
Magic.
I think, that tricking yourself thing, Fertessa, that you mentioned, that's really effective. And I think it works for a lot of different things. So, like, I get stage fright. So when I know that I have to perform, like, for example, if I'm pitching, one of the things that doesn't work for me is to practice. Because if I practice, I've accepted that I'm actually going, oh, it's going to happen, but it hasn't started. And so then I get really anxious because I've already started being in it, but it hasn't started. So I'm actually very good at off the cuff, which is what I'm doing right this second. And so I tend to rely on how good I am at doing things off the cuff and just make sure that I've prepared all of my materials, and then I go. What's fascinating is I can't remember afterwards any of what happened. So George was with me while we were pitching at Origins, and I asked him afterwards because I didn't know, how did it go? I could just remember a blur. So having someone with you for those things is really good too, and knowing what works for you. Making sure that you prepare yourself in the right way for all of the things. So knowing if you're someone who is really bad at checking in with other people, make sure that you go with someone who does check in with people so you both stay safe. If you're someone who's terrible at making sure that you eat at the right time, find a friend who's good at eating. Find a friend who's like, no, food time, and drags you out of the convention center by your hair to feed you if necessary. Like, there are always people who will do this, and some people will relish it. Give them the opportunity to be in charge of you if you need this. Or if you're someone who can do that, offer to be in charge of the people who need you. Please, if anyone's good at this, help me do this at Gen Con. I'm
Which part,
terrible
the
at
eating
feeding
part?
myself. Yes, at remembering to eat.
Oh,
I'm not
again,
interested in eating. I
I
just don't
I
want
don't,
to.
yeah, I don't care either. So I'm
Yeah.
the wrong person to ask for that. Sorry.
No. Someone
It
just has
sounds
to be
like
like, no, it's time to eat. You have to go now. Come with me
Well,
now.
so is this your first Gen Con, Kat?
Yeah, these are my first all of things.
Attention, Gen Con attendees! If you've ever been to Gen Con, that is the sound you will hear. And what we should do is we should tell them to do, attention, Gen Con attendees, please hydrate, eat, and go to the washroom, or something like that.
Oh,
That would be
wow.
more useful than 96% of the stuff they do announce. So
Yes. Amanda, if you can maybe pass that one on, that would be amazing. Seriously.
So I know when they open the doors for the event hall, they do an announcement of like how to behave properly while you're going through the event hall, that there's no running or shoving or whatever. Have your lanyard out, your badge facing forward. Don't be a jerk.
that's actually an important one. So
Yeah.
most
It
of
really
the
is.
lanyards that you'll get for free will allow your thing to spin.
Yes.
So if you get one with 2 points on it or a badge holder, then it won't spin. It'll just sit there, which is
Yes.
nice, because then you never have to ask people, or people won't ask you to turn it around, or people know who you are just because they look at you. I mean, I just wear my shirt that says Sen on it, and that works. So
I didn't even notice you were wearing a shirt that said Sen on it. Were you wearing a shirt that said Sen on it?
oh, just one day my friend made it for me as a joke, so it was pretty fun.
I think that's awesome.
I did ask for it.
I wear my Drea Rink one all the time, but my badge is always on top of it.
There's one that says Jordan, so I said, you can make me one that says Sen, and so he did.
That's a good idea.
It is. Yeah.
Having business cards in your holder as well is really good, because then you're straight ready to be like, hi, here I am.
All those things. Sorry, Fertessa, were you saying something?
Oh, I was just saying I have a friend, designer here. His name's Bo. He has like an electric pen, and his name just goes by on it. And I was like, what?
Yeah. Omari has one that's like animated in rainbows, and
yes. And Marcus had one as well.
His is
Yeah.
just plain white though. It's not as
No,
fun.
he's got a new one. He
Oh,
showed
did
me.
he?
He's got a new one with like scrolling. I was like,
Well,
That's
yes,
awesome.
because he saw Omari's and Scott's. He's like,
yes.
I need to
Amari's
up
rainbow
my,
one is
up
the one
my
that I really
marquee
want.
game, right? It's a marquee. It's literally going like
Yeah, exactly.
Omari, Omari, or
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's
It's
really
important.
I should get one too.
Mhm.
I actually want to put one on the outside of my car so I can write messages to the people who are like tailgating me. But that's a whole other
Yes.
issue. That's not
Yeah.
con safety, except I drive to the con, so maybe it is. I don't know.
Move further back, please. Move further back, please.
Yeah.
Move further back, please.
Yeah.
I used to wear buttons that said "Look but don't touch."
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
mean-
mind if people looked at me or took pictures with whatever the costume I was wearing.
Yeah, especially if you're cosplaying, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I had a lot of people try to get handsy, and
Yes.
as it turns out, I am a violent person when somebody touches my body without permission.
Nice.
And I
Absolutely.
really
And I mean,
had
kind
to
of
work
rightfully
on that.
so. I mean, I don't
That's-
think you need to
that's-
apologize for that. 'cause
No,
something
that's
I
a
like.
really important one. Don't touch people without permission. Asking, are you a hugger? All of
Yes,
this.
right. I mean, that's a really good point.
Can I put your photo on social media? Is this okay? If we get
Right.
selfies
Consent is
together, can I
important.
post it?
So as designers, I don't know if you already talked about this because I missed like 40 minutes of this whole thing, but if you're a designer and you don't want people to talk about your prototype, please let them know. Right? That's really important because
Absolutely.
you're gonna feel free to if you don't. Or some of them are nice and they'll say, "Oh, can I?" Right? But sometimes it's kind of assumed that's in this space, it's open, you might be okay with it.
Mhm.
And all those assumptions make us forget to communicate, right?
Yeah.
So just be clear. I think that's all this is all really about. Be clear that you want to, fist bump instead of handshake instead of hug. Be clear that you don't have any spoons left today for whatever. Be clear that you are, going to bed and that you set some boundaries and don't get drawn into the late night game of Werewolf or whatever if you don't want to. Those are all, it's okay to do those things as long as you want to, but don't feel pressured to do it to be like, with the cool kids or whatever. They're going to be there tomorrow.
But I want to be cool.
Yeah, you are already cool. You're already cool, Kat.
But I might be cooler if I stay up all night and then end up crying like a toddler in the morning.
No,
Probably not. Crying with like a toddler thing will probably downgrade your cool factor. Fertessa, you have a thing you wanted to say.
You reminded me of something
good.
really cool that my friend did. Gil Hova. He, whenever we would sit down to play a game together, especially if it was getting later in the evening, he had like some cards that he would take out. They would pass them out to everyone, and the cards would be like representations of batteries. So it'd be like 100%, 50%, and 0%. And then he'd tell everyone to put one card down, face down. And after everyone picked one, we'd reveal to see where we were at before we played the game. And to see like, okay, are you feeling competitive or are you feeling just blah, almost tapped out? Like what kind of game are we in the mood for? And I always thought that was super smart to do and really it's not a lot of pressure to let you kind of say where you're at that time of the night.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
It does take a lot to say no to some of the design. Like if you're in a group of designers and you actually like those people and you kind of like are very like, oh wow, it's Eric Lang asking me to play a game or something like that. Don't feel bad if you got to go to sleep. Eric also needs to go to sleep.
I like telling people no. I like seeing their reaction.
You also like hitting them, so I mean.
Well, no, I don't like hitting them. That is a unnatural reaction.
I do like hitting people.
That's like trauma based.
Right,
I don't mean to. I hit my own husband if he grabs me from behind, and I apologize every time. But even after 22 years of marriage, like he's got to come at me from face on.
The front.
No, but I like to tell people no if they're an asshole because you said no about something simple like playing a game. They're probably not going to be a good person for me.
Yeah.
It's a very good litmus test. You are completely right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
if you say no and they're like, oh yeah, it's okay, man. I understand. You go to bed. That's one thing. But if you say no and they're like, oh, come on, don't be a weenie. Just stay up and I don't really want you. You're a peer pressure person and I don't like that.
Yeah. And that's true. And to be fair, I have not seen many people who've done that who were sober.
Oh,
right. Jay has a point.
generally.
Yeah, I'm sure, Sen, you, Amanda, Fertessa, Kat, everyone here, no matter how many conventions we've gone to, kind of on the note, like trying to do all the things or what should you do. I think a good piece of advice is to like let people know you don't have to attend everything, because no matter how much
Mhm.
you do or don't do, you're probably going to have a really good time, and you're probably going to feel like there weren't enough days and you wish there was just more time to
Yeah,
do
and
more
you can
things.
never
That's
do
so
everything.
important.
There's so many things
Yeah.
to do, right? And you
And
just got to go
just
back again the next time. It's okay.
and just to be clear, I am at least slightly joking about trying to do everything to the point where I like deplete myself. Like it's the
Yeah.
feeling of it, but I'm certainly
It's me
not
too.
advocating for it.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing that's come up more and more is that a lot of socialization happens around bars and
Mhm.
alcohol. And even now, I mean, especially because marijuana is now legal in some places, there's like
Mhm.
CBD, there's marijuana, there's gummies, there's all these things. You don't have to do them.
Yep.
And if you
And you
don't
don't
want
have to be around them.
no, and there's some very cool people who don't do any of those things ever. Right? And
It's true.
you
Yeah.
don't have to do
I'm
them to be liked in the industry. Don't feel like you have to be pressured into them. They're not,
That's so important.
there are a lot of cultures like that really put a great importance on drinking. Doesn't matter. If you don't
Yep.
want to drink, you drink.
Yep.
Right?
And
Yeah.
that's a really good point, actually, Sen, because a lot of people have said to me, "Oh, come join us in the bar. Come join us in the bar." I'm not comfortable being around people who are drinking.
Sure.
Particularly groups of people I don't know, particularly groups of people indoors that I don't know,
Mm.
I get
and
it.
if they're getting rowdy and those sorts of things. So it's really important to check in. Like in comparison to that, I've had several friends who've said, "Hey, we're thinking of doing some gummies while we're, having this. Are you okay with us doing that?" And I'm like, "You've told me it's good. Thank you. Go ahead. Be safe." Check in. Just check with the people.
Yeah.
Amanda, you were going to say something?
Keep your friends safe too, right?
No.
If they are
Yeah.
drinking, if they are doing gummies, and you
Yes.
see them doing silly things, stop them from doing silly things.
Right.
Yes. Actually, you don't want to jump off that balcony. Did you know you can't fly? Yeah. Yes. And that's a good point, actually, for those of us who have got all of those alerts in our system, like Amanda and I both have, where that's already programmed in. If you know that one of your friends has that kind of, this may not be a safe environment alert that goes off for them, do listen. We're often right. I mean, I did something super weird the other night. My friend Eric Royce was helping me carry things, and George stopped off to talk to someone on the way back. So it was just Eric walking me back to the hotel. I have no problems whatsoever with Eric. Eric is absolutely 100% a safe person. But I still walked all the way back to my hotel room and into the hotel room with him because he was carrying things for me before I went, "Oh, what am I doing?" And again, nothing happened. There was no risk to it. Eric is a completely fine and safe and respectful person, and there was no issue. But my brain didn't trigger that time. I could have put myself in a really dangerous position. So, if your friends say, "Hey, watch what you're doing, be careful about that," do listen to them, because
Yeah.
you never know when that could go the other way. And Eric could have misunderstood what I meant. My husband suddenly disappears and just the two of us are suddenly walking back to a hotel room. What could I be saying to him right now? I wasn't, but what could I be saying?
Yep.
Right.
All those mixed messages, right?
Exactly.
So if a weird Asian dude comes and asks you to record something in a room, that's me. 'Cause I usually have a media room that's set up just for me, microphones and things.
Ooh.
I'm legit. I'm a legit.
Nice.
Legitimately records audio for things. So anyway,
Is that for ludology?
yeah. Nobody ever questions, but it could happen, right? Because just thinking about it's like, yeah, I was recording in a little room where nobody goes, with like just me and one other person, right? And sometimes there are people of the opposite gender than me. Sometimes they're not. The door has to be closed because it's a recording thing, and there's no windows in that room, so it could be pretty dangerous.
And
Yeah.
there's
It's
definitely no
not,
space
but it
for
could
like
be.
an
So
extra person.
I will not feel bad if people say, "Can I bring somebody with me?" etc., etc.
Okay, so there is space. It is possible to bring a support
Oh
person.
yeah, totally would be.
Cool.
But I never offered, and now I will because I just thought about it.
Thank
See,
you. That's awesome.
Sometimes we don't think about that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, well,
So we've covered making sure that you look after your body in terms of fueling it and resting it and cleaning it and all of those sorts of things. We've talked about making sure that you look after look after your mind in terms of giving yourself set up for the day, time to reset, making sure that you understand what you need from conventions for your own mind. And we've talked about making sure that you have other people to look after you and how you connect with people and how you can help other people. I think we've covered pretty much all of the things that you need to think about when you're looking after yourself at conventions. Amanda, did you have any other things that you think we should have covered?
Oh, no, but you mentioned intrusive thoughts that keep you up. And I found something that's helpful for me is to just start writing whatever I'm thinking that is, I call it circling in my head when I'm ruminating on something. I just kind of through my fingers, and I can't type it because I type too quickly and it doesn't actually get out of my head. I have to physically write it. And I don't even need it to be legible. I just the act of writing it. So I'll take like a random sheet of paper with no lights on and just start writing what's going on in my head until it looks like something from A Beautiful Mind or whatever. And then I throw it away later because I don't actually like need all that information. I just
need to
it
download
out
it.
of my head.
It's a process and a ritual.
Yeah.
Good.
I tend to send it in a message to George during the night, and so he wakes up and he's like,
What?
What?
What is this? What even?
Sometimes it's a game idea. Sometimes it's, I think I'm just going to stop doing game design. Sometimes it's anywhere in between.
You should
Jay,
probably
how
not
about
stop
you?
doing game design. I think you're doing okay.
I don't get to choose. It just happens to me.
Well-
Jay, did you have anything else that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. Oh no.
Okay. Fertessa, has anything else occurred to you that you want to cover?
Yes. There was one important thing that I bring to every convention that it might not be for everyone, but I find entirely useful. And that's my handy dandy just in case jacket. Sometimes called a just in case sweater. It can be packed in a backpack. It's nice and comfy. Sometimes it has a hood so you can go outside in the elements. And you never know, it could be like freezing cold in convention halls from room to room.
It is super cold in convention halls.
That's a good point. A lot of people say they're
Dress in
unexpected.
layers, people. Layers.
Let's see, American. It's it might be 80 outside, but it's 65 inside the hall. Have I got it?
I don't know what that means, Pat. I have no idea what that means.
I'm just seeing if the Americans know what I'm saying. We can talk in real numbers.
I mean the general gist of it. Sure.
Yes.
Right, Sen, you haven't been here for some of it. Did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I'm sure you probably went over most of the things I'd normally mention, like lozenges and hand sanitizers. And, I keep my passport on me at all times. I do not leave that I do not leave that anywhere. I would not. There's no way I'm getting stuck in America. That's all I'm saying. Sorry, America. I keep a credit card on me at all times. I keep all that stuff.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been imported, so I make sure I've always got mine as well, so that I can prove that I'm allowed to be here and that I've got my import certificate.
You probably said the 6-to-1 ratio as the minimum, right?
Yes.
6 hours of something like sleep, 2 meals, and 1 shower. That should be your minimum.
Yes.
Right? That's a good minimum to attain, but more is probably even better. Oh, I mean, this is another thing. Like when I mentioned credit cards, like don't spend all your money. Like don't feel you have to spend all your money.
Yeah.
Right.
Like be logical, be frugal. Think about stuff. Oh, could I get that at home? Do I need to get that now? Remember, you got to bring it back with you, right? And if you are in a car, but there are some good con deals. So there you go. I mean, like there's some things that you're going to find that are only available there.
That's a good con tip, actually. On the way there, I tend to pack things like, as I was saying, the 6-pack of V8 and so on. Part of that is that now my suitcase is heavier and more full. And by the end of that, there's no longer that weight. And so I have room for things. which is always important.
Oh, and if you have other routines like exercise and stuff, like I'm in my dojo here doing grappling, go do it.
Yeah.
If it's something that keeps you whole and healthy and you like doing it, find
like
a
I was
gym.
saying, going for a swim in the
Go
morning, or some
swimming. If
people
you can
go for
find
a
a
run.
pool, some places
or...
weirdly don't have pools.
Yeah.
If you're like me into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's always gyms that have drop-ins. You just got to go to them. So
And
pack
there's
your
heaps
gear
of
if you
floor
want.
for you to roll on anyway.
There also is a lot of floor. And see, every good booth has like mats, like anti-fatigue mats. You could roll on those. It'd be fun.
Yeah. And just the last thing actually that I wanted to mention, the thing that I still always do at conventions is I wear a mask. If you don't agree with people wearing masks, that's your call. That's up to you. But don't comment on people who are wearing masks, because it's already hard enough being one of the only ones wearing a mask without having to explain it to every single person. And two, thank you so much to everyone who sat down at my table while I was wearing a mask and said, would you like me to put my mask on, or just put their mask on? Thank you. Because as I mentioned earlier, I still haven't had COVID. I plan for that to always be the case. I'm aiming to never get COVID. And so everyone helping us mask is or helping us stay healthy.
Yeah, and somebody did message me that they did get COVID at Origins.
Someone
but they
messaged
had
me
it.
as
They
well.
had it like on day 2, and so they sequestered themselves away from everybody as soon as they figured it out.
Someone messaged me that like the day after, they suddenly were like, oh no, I feel feverish and I was at your table, I had a mask, and luckily my test is clear. But yes, thank you also for the people who tell people do that.
Yes,
keep doing
exactly. Communicate. It's important.
Yes.
It's no shame to get it.
No,
it's
absolutely not. It's nothing you did wrong.
You need to talk to people about it. So that's about it.
Yes.
All right. We are 16 minutes over, and I know I came in late, so that can account for that. It's all your fault. But what I'm going to do, if possible, is once this is over, this goes into the cloud. So if it went into the cloud in full, then I will pull it down and I will put it somewhere, like on YouTube or something.
Okay, that sounds like a good place.
We'll see. If it can't be fully video, then I'll at least grab the audio. I don't know. It's all up in the air. I don't know. George and I were talking about it offline. That's what I was typing before. About like because my computer screen went black and it's like, oh, that's weird. What happened there? So maybe
maybe your computer went to sleep. Yeah, and so it stopped.
But I could still hear all your audio. So I don't know what was going on, but
happy to chat again if our show didn't work out.
All right.
So
there will be more
we're
fun.
getting at the end of the show. What we do, Amanda, you may not realize, is after we've gone through and talked about where we can all be reached, we also ask you for a final piece of advice. So we're going to do that little bit now, and you can start thinking about what that final piece of advice might be.
Give you a couple seconds.
Sen, if you could run us through the next bit, please.
All right. If you want to talk more to me, you can reach me at Senfeng Lim on Twitter. Kat, where can people find you?
Drea Inc. on all the things.
And we are also at Meeple Syrup on all the things.
Yes, we are.
Jay Bell, what are you on Twitter?
I am the Jay Bell.
Yep.
You are the
whole Jay Bell, 100%.
And Fertessa, where are you?
You can find me, Fertessa, at Fertessa.
But wait, there's more.
And, Amanda, you are where on Twitter?
I am Geek Details.
At Geek Details on Twitter. Awesome. And also geekdetails.com for the website, correct?
That's me.
There you go. So if you would like to support the Meeple Syrup Show, you can reach us at patreon.com/meeplesyrup. We love it when you support us because that allows us to do things like record bits and stuff. And I did try. I got a couple up, but then I cut Marcus's head off. And then my app wasn't working quite right.
That sounds really messy.
Vertical mode. Well, so I need to figure it out. But I will try to do it some more from Gen Con because it's fun. I like doing the live stuff, and we could actually meet Amanda in person there, right?
No.
Yeah.
Info booth.
At the info booth. Wonderful. All right. So, hey, guess what, Kat? There's no coming soon because we are done for the summer. Yes. So this is it for the summer. So for the next 8 weeks, we're going on hiatus because of various cons and travel and all that kind of stuff. We'll be back in September. Not sure exactly when. Most likely same time, same day, like Wednesday nights at around the 9 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Pacific time. Jay, I'm not sure where you're going to be at that time, so who knows what time zone you're going to be in. But
Whatever,
we'll have
Jay
a
time.
whole new slate running from September. Probably we'll get September to January done, and then we'll think about the next in January because we also take a short Christmas break. So that's about it. That's about it, everybody. So, hey, Amanda, it's time for your final advice.
My final advice would be go to a convention with an open heart and let the good times roll.
Yeah.
Yay.
There you go.
That's
Let
really
the good
lovely.
times roll.
Let the good
That's
times roll.
very
laissez
New
le bon temps
Orleans of
rouler.
you.
It's
Yeah,
very
laissez-les bon temps rouler.
car
Right.
show of me. I grew up around car shows, and that was you let the good times roll.
Oh, there you go. Excellent. All right. So, everybody, we will see you later. Fertessa, it was lovely to see you. Fertessa, will you be at Gen Con?
No.
Oh,
Not
Fertessa.
this year.
All right.
Not
Maybe
this
next
year.
year.
Maybe
Jay
Jay, will
Bell,
you be
will
at
you
Gen
be
Con?
at Gen Con?
I absolutely will be at Gen Con.
Fantastic.
All right, Jay Bell, we will be
Yay.
at Gen Con. Do you know that I have never met Jay Bell in person?
It's gonna change. It's gonna change.
Isn't that weird?
Do you know that
That's really
I've never
weird.
met Jay Bell in person either?
Well,
neither.
now
Yes, you
of
have.
course, I've just known Jay
Wait,
Bell
is he
for-
How did you
real?
have?
Has anyone met him in person?
It's
Maybe
Yeah,
he's
I
not
missed
real.
him
He's
like
AI.
a boat in the night.
He's a
Well,
deep
me and
fake.
Black Panther are never in the same room at the same time. So
That is
It's
also.
not the J Bell. It's the AI J Bell.
I hope not.
Whoa.
AI is not great. I don't
No.
like AI.
No.
No way.
That means J Bell's not great, and that doesn't compute.
That doesn't compute because Jay Bell is really awesome. So he can't be AI.
'Cause he's got to be real.
It's got to be real, right? That's how logic works.
Yes.
All right, everybody. We'll see you later. Thank you so much, Amanda, for coming on the show tonight. Thank you, Jay and Fertessa, for being our guest panelists for the season. And we will see everybody in September.
Yeah.
Exciting.
See you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. The stream is